President Buhari meets with Commonwealth scribe, reaffirms commitment to free, fair and credible 2019 polls.
Code of Conduct Tribunal issues warrant of arrest on suspended Chief Justice Onome.
Accident Investigation Bureau releases report on Vice President Oshibajo's crashed helicopter.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on the National Peace Accord 2019.
It is obvious that no meaningful development can come to any society that is known or allowed itself to be engulfed in any form of unrest at any given time. I am sure you will agree with me on this, Kingsley.
No doubt about that, Jumai. Now, that assertion is particularly relevant for this period of electioneering in Nigeria. And indeed, the credibility of an election, or the elections in general, will also be gauged by the level of absence of violence or other forms of manipulations of the electoral process.
Indeed, Kingsley, the threat to unrest becomes practically visible and palpable at this period, Kingsley. Be it before, during, and even after elections in Nigeria seem to have the different degree of violence perpetuated by political leaders and their followers.
Well, we have seen the country witnessing the various rounds of violence in the election cycles, more particularly the post-election violence that occurred in 2011. But indeed, in 2015, the tension was so palpable that persons were relocating from their usual places of abode to their ancestral regions on account of the tensions generated by the 2015 elections. But happily, all went well.
Exactly, Kingsley. One cannot forget the steps taken by some eminent leaders before the 2015 general elections to get the leadership of the political parties committed to the peaceful campaigns and elections, as well as proper management of reactions to the results of the polls to achieve peaceful outcome, which worked to a great level.
Now, the 2019 elections are just some 48 hours away, and another commitment to ensure that Nigerians get credible, free, fair, and most importantly, peaceful polls is what has necessitated the second signing of the National Peace Accord, which took place yesterday in Abuja.
Yes, Kingsley, it should be recalled before 13th February, there was the peace accord signed in December 2018 too. So what is the word of a peace accord? How binding is this on all the signatories and relevant stakeholders? What actions and reactions are expected with this intervention for the nation going forward? These are some of the questions guests will answer as we focus on National Peace Accord. I am Jumma Yusuf, welcoming you to Good Morning Nigeria for today.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Jumain in also welcoming you to this edition of the program, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're Africa's largest TV network, and we're here at the Abuja headquarters studios. So in the course of our program today, we have our regular companion segments, and these are newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. But first, let's take the highlights of the morning news with Stella Inameti. Morning, Stella.
Good morning, Kingsley and Jume. Welcome to the news. President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration is not unmindful of the fact that any government that finds its way into office illegitimately will neither achieve nor sustain public confidence to remain in power. Exchanging views with the Commonwealth Secretary General Patricia Scotland, the president reaffirmed his promise to ensure the forthcoming elections are free, fair and credible in the overall interest of the country. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has joined other presidential candidates for the forthcoming general elections to renew their pledge for peaceful elections. This was at the second signing of the National Peace Accord on prevention of violence and acceptance of the election results under the auspices of the National Peace Committee.
By agreeing to sign this covenant for peace, all of you are committing yourselves to ensuring an enduring peace in Nigeria.
What happens in Nigeria matters to all. I am making a special appeal to our young people. Do not allow yourselves to be used to cause violence.
And with just few days to the 2019 presidential election, the APC presidential campaign rally has been held at the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, where President Muhammadu Buhari appealed to the international community to assist the country in recovering the nation's looted funds abroad.
Who said they sent 16 billion American dollars on power, eventually they will account for it. Those who have been given responsibilities in the 3 tiers of government, the center, the state and local government, and they abuse it, we will ask the security agencies to investigate them.
So that is why, Your Excellency, the 1,300,000 registered voters in Abuja have decided to cast their vote for you.
The Accident Investigation Bureau has released the preliminary report on accident involving the Caverton helicopter, which had Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and 12 other persons on board. Part of the initial findings of the agency indicates that Caverton Helicopter Limited did not conduct site survey of the landing field in Kaba prior to the flight.
To Kaba, Kogi State on the 3rd February 2019 and commenced post-occurrence assessments under the provision of the Civil Aviation Investigation of Air Accidents and Incidents Regulation of 2016.
President Muhammadu Buhari has again assured Nigerians of his commitment to remain focused on working to improve their lives and to provide leadership that will not sacrifice the future well-being of Nigerians for any personal or material gains. This was at an interfaith town hall meeting held at the Presidential Villa, Abuja.
To secure the country first, we have to create the enabling environment. And I believe that the president is determined to secure this country, to make sure that all areas of conflict are reduced to the minimum.
The current regime has done so much for the Nigerian people. We must not be like the 10 lepers.
I want us to be very positive on our nation, and positive on our leaders, and positive on the direction we are going.
The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, says the Army has developed election situation room for the monitoring of the 2019 general election.
We have troops on patrols, we have them stationary on standby, and they will be able to respond quickly. And all the formations, the GOCs, the brigade commanders have access, or we have link to them, that we can reach them within the shortest possible time.
The acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, has told the international community that the independence of the nation's judicial arm of government is not under threat. He stated this while receiving the European Union Observers Delegation for the 2019 general elections in Nigeria.
That will show the society our transparency, our honesty, and our dedication to service.
There is no fear at all because we operate within the constitutional provisions and the Electoral Act.
Meanwhile, the Code of Conduct Tribunal has issued a warrant of arrest on the suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onogen. This follows an application made to the tribunal by the federal government following the refusal of Justice Onogen to appear before the tribunal.
If he's absent again, I will ask for the appropriate order. I'm not happy that he is not appearing. And by his position, he is a person who should obey the summons of the court.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Jume and Kingsley after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
My name is Chinazo Gochku. I'm from Imo State. I have been doing business in this area since past 7 years without any help. When I had this government something that's helping people, I go to them. They give me money. I have got 50,000 from them, and I pay back. I pray to God, let government give to other people so that the money will prosper to everybody. As I myself, I'm very happy, and my family. I pray God to give to other people so that they will enjoy this money with me and enjoy this government with me.
My Naija people, make we make the right choice, yo. Make we vote for the man of integrity. Hey, so make we gather together, make this change work, my people of Naija. Together we go carry Naija to the next level. Naija don't decide. Vote Baba Buhari. Baba Buhari, the man of integrity. Vote Baba Buhari. And we no corrupt, we no go chop our money. Hey, agriculture, the next level, fight corruption, the next level, the roads, to the next level, electricity, to the next level, railway, the next level, empower, the next level, money. For good health we go, oh, Baba Buhari. My people, for the next level. ABC, next level. Naija people, make we all come out to vote Baba Buhari.
This message is from Buhari Next Level Group.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Customer, you are welcome. What do you want to buy from us this time? I have new stock.
Let me look around.
All right. Hello?
This is Patrick, your generator technician.
Patrick.
Madam, you haven't called me to service your generator in a while, oh. Hope no problem.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick. I don't use my generator anymore because we now have steady power supply in Surah Market. All thanks to the federal government.
Okay, madam. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
So you now have steady power supply here too?
Yes.
Just like we have in Sabongere Market in Kano and Ariara Market in Aba.
All federal government's efforts that they have put into the power sector have paid off in bringing improved electricity all over the nation. Do you know what I love most about it?
What?
This has really improved my business.
Oh, really? And you are smiling to the bank.
Of course.
Improved power supply nationwide. Another commitment of the federal government to Nigerians. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently guarding, waiting, listening and watching. They are there ready in the sky above. They are there in the blistering heat of the day and in the dead of night, willing, regardless and unrelenting in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last.
Vice President Yemi Oshibajo welcomes collaboration with Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers and the federal government that will provide e-growth opportunities like using the capital and financial markets to address infrastructural deficit in the country. For other developments in the world of business, Joy Uzo is standing by.
It's good to have you join us on Business News. Now to the recently released Q4 GDP numbers by the National Bureau of Statistics. The Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udoma has said current real GDP growth performance is most encouraging and shows a movement in a very positive direction, especially with regard to the non-oil sector performance, and assured that with the Buhari administration's continuing commitment to the implementation of the ERGP, the economy is expected to further strengthen in 2019 and over the medium term. He emphasized that much has been achieved since the economy came out of recession. The minister gave the reaction at a gathering of media practitioners at the Nigerian Union of Journalists Press Center in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom State capital, on Wednesday. And to oil matters, the International Energy Agency, IEA, in its latest report released Wednesday, has said global oil markets will struggle this year to absorb fast-growing crude supply from outside the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. This is despite the group's production cuts and United States sanctions on Venezuela and Iran. The IEA left its demand growth forecast for 2019 unchanged from its last report in January at 1.4 million barrels per day. The IEA raised its estimate of growth in crude supply from outside OPEC to 1.8 million barrels per day in 2019 from 1.6 million barrels per day previously. The agency also lowered its forecast for demand for OPEC crude production, of which they have pledged to cut supply by 800,000 barrels per day this year as part of an agreement with Russia and other non-OPEC producers. The call on OPEC crude is now forecast at 30.7 million barrels per day in 2019, down from the IEA's last estimate of 31.6 million barrels per day in January. And to stocks trading on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, halts two-day bullish trend for the week on Wednesday, with the all-share index depreciating by 0.15% to close at 32,413.92 basis points. Next is a graphic representation of the closing figures. That's Business News. Many thanks for your time. I'm Joy Uzo. Good Morning Nigeria continues.
Thank you very much, Joy Uzo, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Newspaper Review is up next for us on the program.
We now introduce our regular Mr. Bayo. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Valentine's.
Thank you. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Ayo, good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin by taking a look at the front pages of the papers. The stories that are common to the front pages, by the way. You have for the Daily Trust newspaper, the lead says Buhari Atiku will accept outcome of credible polls. And you see the photograph there showing the former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, incumbent president Muhammadu Buhari, that's the candidate of the APC, and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, candidate of the PDP, the second signing of the peace accord that took place in Abuja yesterday. Now, that photograph is also on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Take a look at the Punch very quickly now. You see the photograph of the Punch newspaper, one of the three photographs there, with the headline, Buhari Atiku orders sign peace pact on poll outcome. The story is in greater detail on page 8. And for the New Telegraph, it's captured this way. That's the same story. Presidential polls. And that's the kicker. Buhari begs Atiku others to accept results. And you have the writers there by way of quotes from the statements read by the two candidates at the signing of the peace accord yesterday. There were other candidates, by the way, at that event. You can see the two photographs also there from the same event that took place in Abuja yesterday.
Okay.
Juman.
Mr. Bayo, we have the Daily Sun, and beside the nameplate, again, Buhari Atiku signed peace accord. Will the rider accept INEC's final result? President tells fellow candidates. And then below the masthead, we have, like Jonathan, my ambition not worth blood of any Nigerian, Atiku says. That's on page 39. How militants were unleashed on my government by Buhari, that's on page 6. And it's disturbing headlines there. Boko Haram attacks Borno governor's convoy. 5 killed. With a rider, army recovers weapons, vehicles. And then we have the picture message there. Still dignitaries that attended the National Peace Accord signing. Below the masthead, we have Ekwere Madu to INEC security agencies. You will take the blame. Praise. That's on page 40. Police to wear special tags on poll day to guard against impersonation. That's coming from the IGP, Inspector General of Police. That's on page 4 and 5. CCT orders suspended CGN Onogen's arrest. That's on page 6. With a rider, NJC sets up 5-man panel to probe suspended CGN, Tanku Muhammad. And the Daily Independent has above the masthead, investors see more gains if opposition wins 2019 election. That's on page 10. CCT orders DSS police to arrest Onoge with a rider. NUC issues acting Chief Justice Mohammed fresh query. That's on page 10. PDP introduces scheme to guide against rigging polls. That's on page 11. Atiku vows to pay NDDC outstanding 1.8 trillion allocation. That's on page 44. And then the headline says, still the same story like the Daily Sun, very disturbing and frightening headlines there. Boko Haram attacks Borno governor's convoy, kills 3, seizes vehicles, injures several. And the picture message is still the same, dignitaries at the National Peace Accord signing. Results of election must be binding on all of us, Buhari insists, with a rider. Ensure INEC security personnel remain neutral. Atiku tells him, says his ambition not worth the blood of any Nigerian. AIB indicts coveting helicopters over Oshiba just crashed. That's on page 4. INEC commissioners campaigning with PDP. Oshomole alleges. That's on page 4. And at the bottom plate, boom for e-commerce as Jumia. Well, that's all we have now. Bayo?
Yes. Well, a second peace accord has been signed by candidates contesting the presidential election. President Muhammadu Buhari and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar led other presidential candidates to sign the peace accord. Former presidents of Botswana, Tanzania, and Liberia, who are observers to the 2019 elections, were a party to witness the signature. The candidates agreed to accept the outcome of free, fair, and credible election. They also pledged to ensure that the polls are conducted peacefully. President Muhammadu Buhari said, I appeal to my fellow contestants to commit to these ideals so as to keep our country people safe. He went on to say, let us use the election to strengthen our beliefs in the united country. He said, we will vote according to parties, but in the end, the only real party is Nigeria, our country. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar said, my ambition is not worth the blood of any Nigerian, remains his own benchmark. He expressed hope that our democracy should emerge stronger than 2015. He appealed to everybody, particularly INEC, police, to be fair arbiters and by letting neutrality prevail. In the face of his party's concern on malpractices, he said he trusts election and security officials will act in accordance with their oath and obligations. Chairman at the signing ceremony, former head of state General Absalami Abubakar, challenged them to lead by example. General Yakubu Gowon has also admonished them to prevail on their supporters against violence. The Secretary General of the Commonwealth, he says, Africa depends on a healthy Nigeria. So all the clearance call is there for a peaceful election. But the peaceful campaign that the governor of Borno State expected did not come to pass. His convoy was attacked while he was on the campaign route to Gaborone, Ghana. Gaborone, Ghana is in the northern fringe of Borno, that shares border with Chad. The governor is a senatorial candidate for the Saturday's election. Some papers are reporting 5 persons killed, others are reporting 3, but one of the persons is an aide to the governor and the other are civilian JTF personnel. It's very worrying if the convoy of a governor can be so attacked brazenly. It shows that the insurgents were probably lying in wait, having noted that the governor was on his campaign trail through the area.
Yeah, it's worrisome. I think the details of the incident are varied, the various accounts that have been published. But it seemed to have been a night journey. And was it one that should have been undertaken?
Yes,
considering
advisable, yes.
Yes, considering the circumstances in certain parts of Borno at this time. It's unfortunate that this thing has happened, but it's a wake-up call regardless. Let's return to the Punch newspaper. Punch newspaper, above the nameplate, you have a number of headlines there. Says, Britain to Nigerian politicians, incite violence, get visa ban and forfeit assets. That's Britain to Nigerian politicians, incite violence, get visa ban and forfeit assets. That's on page 10. And then you also have another one there. PDP shuns Ogun as Buhari and Atiku take final rallies to home states. That's on page 44. Now, the lead story says, CUPP fixes protest for Friday as CCT, that's Code of Conduct Tribunal, orders on Oran's arrest. Suspended CJN asks appeal court to void directive. Details on page 7. Now, you have some other headlines there on the right side. That's the first column from the right side. It says, vote for me, you won't regret, Buhari tells Nigerians. And PDP worries over intimidation of voters, journalists, and others. AIB blames poor visibility for Oshibajo helicopter crash. That's page 8. Elections. Army uncovers plan by miscreants to wear military uniform in Rivers. That's page 28. Bayo, let's take these ones. The other stories we have on the front page of the New Telegraph, they are among those that Jumai already read from the other papers. But let's just go quickly below the nameplate of the New Telegraph. You have the story there on the Accident Investigation Bureau, speaking on the outcome of the investigation into the Caverton helicopter crash involving the Vice President on August arrest. Then court grants SGA Babachelawa bail. That's on page 7. And APC wants to arrest our members. Details of the story can be found inside. And the Boko Haram attack on the governor's convoy, killing 3, is there, along with minister's fleet runs into travelers, injures 16. That's page 6. That's page 8, rather. And then Bayo, I think that we'll take those stories now.
Yes, the Accident Investigation Bureau has provided an interim report about the helicopter crash that involved the Vice President at Kaba. And the report indicated that there was no conduct of a site survey of the landing site by the Cameroon Helicopter Agency. He said no safety risk assessment were conducted. Engineer Akin Olateru, who is the commissioner of AIB, says that the helicopter landing in what he described as a brownout condition led to the accident. However, he said that the helicopter had a valid certificate and was airworthy. The crew members also were licensed and they were well rested. However, they said a comprehensive report about the investigation will come later. It was also observed that a police helicopter had actually landed at the same site before that of the Vice President. Now going to the courts now. A court of appeal in Sokoto Division has stricken out the appeal against the primaries of the APC in Zamfara. Aminu Jaji, the appellant, withdrew and the court accordingly dismissed the suit. However, the implication for Zamfara is that the High Court ruling about APC did not conduct primaries on October 3rd and 7th still subsist because High Court in Abuja had upheld INEC's refusal of the APC candidate in Zamfara candidate. However, there is also an appeal on that case and it is fixed for February 28, I think, about 2 days to the gubernatorial election. At the Code of Conduct Tribunal sitting resumed yesterday, the tribunal has ordered the suspended chief justice was not in court at the tribunal as ordered in the previous sitting. While the defense argued the issue of jurisdiction ought to be determined before the tribunal can take the motion. The prosecution argued that the defendant's absence in court is priority because he has to be in court to take a plea before they will proceed. He even argued that it is his right to decline to take a plea, but he has no right to refuse to appear in court. Accordingly, the chairman ordered a bench warrant to be issued for his arrest. Accordingly, the Inspector General of Police and Director General DSS have been asked to produce him at the tribunal at the next time of the sitting. At the National Judicial Council, a 5-man committee has been set up to look at the petition and responses from the suspended Chief Justice and the Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria. This time, the committee is headed by a retired Justice of the Supreme Court, S.A. Akinto. There is also another petition that has been given to Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria from the Action Party of Nigeria, and he has been given 7 days to respond to that.
Okay, thank you, Bayo. Now we go to the editorial, and it's from the New Telegraph. It says, no to vote buying. Nigeria has strengthened electoral laws and invested in biometric technology amongst other milestones that have reduced election rigging, but vote buying, which is gradually becoming a norm in the polity, is fast eroding the people's confidence in the electoral process. While vote buying is subject to punishment, the attainment of compliance to this legal provision remains a challenge. Like other electoral offenses, the relevant agencies have only been able to prosecute a handful of offenders despite their growing number. The editorial says INEC on its part should take its war against vote buying beyond electioneering period. It must keep tab on the primaries of the various political parties, as cash for vote is not limited to general elections. Bayo.
Yes, indeed. The New Telegraph is asking and drawing attention to the challenge of vote buying. And the editorial says vote buying or electoral inducement is as old as election itself. However, it points out that there has been increase in Nigeria with recent elections in Ondo, Ekiti, and Osun. And he says the monetary inducement of election is a problem. Particularly, the last one was the see and buy that featured prominently in Ekiti and Osun. INEC has also drawn attention to the subterfuge that being planned now with food vendors at polling units that will now keep cash become an accessory for those who buy vote. And therefore, INEC has needed that in the board. The editorial also advised that vote buying are a threat to the primaries of political parties, and therefore, if INEC wants to check vote buying, it should start from primaries. I think for now, it is too late in the day. Maybe for the next elections, they will go to primary. But for now, vote buying is an offense, but it is conducted in broad daylight. INEC officials see it, they can point to it, but they don't have the responsibility for arrest. Policemen are at the polling units, but scarcely are people who are indulging in it arrested. And therefore, the editorial is calling for strict measures by INEC identifying them, police arresting them, and those who are so culpable fined. It points to the fact that Section 124 and 130 of the Electoral Act provides for culpability for indulging in it, and the punishment is a fine of 100,000 and imprisonment of 12 months. But in conclusion, the editorial is saying that INEC must, in future, propose more stringent measures in the Electoral Act to check vote buying. And also, as has been proposed, there is a need for probably an election offences tribunal to take charge of offences that are strictly related to elections.
All right, Bayo, thank you very much. And just before we go, let's go over to page 30 of the Daily Trust newspaper. You'll see a photograph there. It's sign language. It says, buy your Richard cards here. And this is coming from... and that's coming...
That's interesting.
So if you can hear that again, say, buy your, you know, say, give me recharge card. So that's become like Richard.
Richard
So
already,
buy your
yes.
recharge cards, yeah. And that's coming from Ghana, by the way.
But he has communicated.
Well,
Yes, yes.
Richard, when would they start selling Mary cards? Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay. All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be discussing the National Peace Accord.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
We, the Nigerian youth, have resolved to stand with you, Baba, in the next level. We recognize your commitment to create jobs and empower the youth. Your strategic policies in the agri-sector has not only increased gainful employment and boosted production, but also saved the nation billions of dollars in foreign exchange. We are benefiting from your deployment of infrastructure across the country. With Abuja, Kaduna, and Lagos-Abeokuta rail lines completed, Itakpe-Ajaokuta-Warri rail line will soon be completed, while Lagos-Kano rail line is under construction. Additional 1,531 kilometers of roads have been completed and over 1,000 kilometers rehabilitated across the country. The second Niger bridge is on the way through Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund. Hydropower plants in Mambila, Zungeru, and many other power projects are under construction to add value to the improved power generation, transmission, and distribution in the country. Brokering and sustaining peace in the Niger Delta has helped stabilize the economy, thereby increasing investment in the oil and gas sector. We are coming with you to the next level to see the Empower scheme increase to 1.5 million beneficiaries and full implementation of the 10 billion Naira Youth Entrepreneurship Project. Nigerian youth, let's connect to the next level. This message is powered by Dr. Tony Uoye, Director, Youth Mobilization, APC Presidential Campaign Council.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Daba then and Ishak Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency caution. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Medical Mission (MMM) is offering free services on a wide range of medical issues. Take advantage of these offers, especially by availing yourself of the National Cancer Prevention Program (NCPP). You can do so by coming for our Wellness Wednesday program at 31 Bode Thomas Street, Surulere, Lagos every Wednesday from 7 a.m. You also have the opportunity of seeing the specialist and getting expert opinion on any health issues that may have been bothering you. Are you preparing to get married to your sweetheart? Then we have a pre-marital health program that will help you ensure that you start your married life on a healthy footing. Very important health screening and counseling will be made available for you and your partner. You can avail yourself of this opportunity by attending our pre-wedding Wednesday program from 7 a.m. For inquiries, send a mail to info@pinkcruise.org or log on to www.pinkcruise.org or call 0805-633-4288. Mission Pink Cruise, taking wellness to all.
This is Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live from Abuja. Now to set the tone for a discussion on National Peace Accord and the 2019 elections, our correspondent Adamu Sambu has put together this background report.
This is indeed the crowning moment for consolidation of the peace efforts by the National Peace Committee as President Muhammadu Buhari of the governing APC and candidates of the other political parties formally signed the Second National Peace Accord. The overriding objective is not only to keep the peace during and after the forthcoming elections, but also accept the will of the nation's voting populace, as explained by the chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdusalami Abubakar.
By agreeing to sign this covenant for peace, all of you are committing yourselves to ensuring an enduring peace in Nigeria after the elections, and agreeing to look beyond short-term electoral gain, sectional interest, or narrow party advantage, and accepting to focus on nothing but the national interest.
Commonwealth Secretary General Patricia Scotland and others who delivered messages of goodwill harped on the need for the candidates to live up to the letter and spirit of the Peace Accord, saying Nigeria, the jewel of Africa and standard of reference politically and economically, must not fail.
The country, the regions, the continent, and wider world are holding their breath. What happens in Nigeria matters to all.
To the presidential candidates present, I wish to stress that your pledge for peace today is vital.
Accepting the outcome of the polls and calling for restraint on the part of followers is critical.
We, the traditional rulers, are committed to contributing our own quota by constantly appealing to our people to keep the peace.
Both President Muhammadu Buhari of the APC and candidate Atiku Abubakar of the PDP restated their commitment to the peace enterprise as Nigerians return to the polls on Saturday to exercise their franchise.
I am making a special appeal to our young people. Do not allow yourselves to be used to cause violence. Please eschew all forms of violence and cooperate with all the relevant agencies during these elections. We will vote according to parties, but in the end, the only real party is Nigeria, our country.
Every candidate must remember that this election is about the future of Nigeria. I appeal once again to our citizens to go out and cast their votes for the candidates of their choice, to be peaceful at all times.
Most important, President Buhari said, is for him and the other candidates to accept the final outcome, as both INEC, the electoral umpire, and the law enforcement agencies are committed to executing their mandates conscientiously.
It was to ensure this that I made sure that INEC received all the resources they needed to perform their job. Our security agencies have been fully briefed, and they know that their visible neutrality is key to credibility and success of the elections. To all our citizens, let us use this opportunity to strengthen our beliefs in a united country. Let us do our best and ask God to bless us and our country.
More than 70 out of the 91 political parties fielded presidential candidates for the general elections, the sixth since the rebirth of democracy in 1999.
Adamu Sambo, thank you very much for that background report. Now we have with us in the studios to discuss the issue in greater detail the convener of the National Peace Committee, under whose auspices the National Peace Accord was signed again yesterday. Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka is the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. Usually we have him from Sokoto to join us on conversations on Good Morning Nigeria, but today is right with us in the Abuja studios. Bishop Kuka, pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you very much, Kingsley.
Okay. Also here with us is Dr. Yunusa Tanko. Yunusa Tanko, former chair of IPAC, that is Interparty Advisory Council, and is the NCP presidential candidate in the 2019 elections. Dr. Tanko, another familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria, pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Well, let's begin this first with Bishop Kuka. In two election cycles, 2015 and 2019, there's been the phenomenon of a peace accord under the auspices of the National Peace Committee, which is not part of the formal structures governing the electoral process. And yet, there's wide reportage of the activities of the Peace Committee. What is this all about?
I think it's a measure of the fact that somehow our process requires certain things that are necessarily not in the script. And I think the good thing about National Peace Committee is that it wasn't set up by government. It's not funded by government. All the members, as you see, are eminent and very, very busy people, but nobody receives a penny. They all come on their own volition. Had it been that we had government, it was set up by government, it would be necessarily tied to the politics of the day. Had it been funded by government, you'll have all those kind of problems. So, but I also think that it's a measure of the fact that democracy is not necessarily the way we see it, and that there are often very important institutions that are not necessarily formal. The idea of peace committees apparently seems to have gotten off the ground. It's in Ghana, it's in Tunisia, and other places. But I think fundamentally it's the fact that there is need to build trust in the political process. And very often our people have become, and I think they have earned the right to be thoroughly cynical about government and its institutions. So whenever there is a platform that people don't perceive it's likely to be manipulated by government, they tend to trust it. And I think that in fairness to the Peace Committee, we're extremely lucky to have had the kind of chairman that we have, who has driven the process extremely well and inspired quite a lot of confidence. So most of what you see is the result of the endless telephone calls that the chairman of the Peace Committee has had. And I think we're really eternally grateful to Nigerians. But I think it also suggests very clearly that our country is not as complicated as we want to make it look. Ordinary people just want some very basic things. So I think we as members of the Peace Committee are tremendously grateful to Nigerians for their appreciation. And I think that if this becomes part and parcel of our culture, it will mean that ordinary Nigerians will have other platforms to look at that are not necessarily political, and that we're heading basically in the same direction.
All right, Bishop Kuka, thank you very much. Dr. Tanko, let's have your take on this. As I said, two election cycles, and then you have the peace accord, again, under the auspices of the National Peace Committee. What does this signify?
Well, right from the beginning, there was this issues that we have in the polity, within the political parties. And then we noticed that there is a serious discord and lack of trust among probably those in government and those who are outside. And that situation has sparked up a lot of violence to the extent that there are verbal abuse, even abusing the system, and then you know, using the judicial process to muzzle in people, even to a point of, you know, physical attack and all, and killings that have taken place in the country. So when the Interparty Advisory Council idea was sold to the political party, I was part of the initial program. We thought that we could be able to discuss within ourselves and kind of take care of some of these violence and between intra and inter-party problems that does happen. But within that period, we lack that particular strength to enforce some of the rules that we've been able to put on ourselves in trying to sanction any political party that had incited violence within itself, in the political party and probably outside. But that was not achieved. So eventually, ideas came in that, look, they need to have a high-powered leadership in a committee that can help in instilling some more of moral suasion into seeing that, okay, there are eminent Nigerians who have gone into this particular process and be able to talk to leaders. God help us. So the 2015 general election was the BF of activities. People were saying Nigeria is going to break and all. And I'm happy and very, very honored to have been in part of that particular committee, the National Peace Committee, before I opted because I'm running for election. Now, as our Lord Bishop said, it was a very hectic task to get major gladiators to talk to each other, and it was successful. So today we are very, very much happy with the work of the National Peace Committee. You will see the way in which people scramble after the first signing to ensure that they go to the Reverend Martin Kruger's Center to ensure that their signatures are penned to that particular document. That's to show you that they too are having confidence in the process of the Peace Committee. That it is only when Nigerians see you that you are signing to a document of that nature that they believe that you are not going to incite violence. But that is not to say that there's some of the things that are coming up which have maybe has instilled the reason for the second signing, because the Peace Committee do a nitty-gritty kind of internal checking as regard to whether the people are really adhering to what the document they have signed. And I'm sure what happened yesterday was a clamorous of activity to kind of consolidate on the work that the Peace Committee have done. I think it's a big congratulations to the committee.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yunus Tanko. He has raised some issues here. You brought in people from across the world to attest to the fact that Nigerians are ready for peace during the 2019 general elections. What is the body language of politicians that you have been able to talk to?
Well, you know, fighting to be president of Nigeria is not a small thing. You know, you're not going to be president of a banana republic. And the huge resources of Nigeria suggest very clearly that struggling to get to the door requires quite a lot of things. So you can understand why there is always so much excitement in the system. But to answer your question, it was necessary for us to internationalize this. Even if we didn't do that, the first thing is that, and I think this is really a great consolation and a plus for Nigeria. And as as we were discussing with Kingsley, it's a measure of how seriously others take Nigeria. The greatest tragedy for us is how we undermine ourselves. You know, and I often say, you know, you meet a Nigerian and you say to him, "Oh, you look very well," and they say, "No, it's his photo trick." So this lack of self-confidence is getting in the way of Nigeria's greatness. And as I said, the very fact that at this particular point in time, every minute, every second, every hour counts for the politician. But that the president and Vice President Atiku and other presidential candidates will drop everything and come to where they were summoned is a measure of the seriousness that they commit to the fact that this process has to get on. That we'd invited President Clinton, it was just the last minute, everything was, literally already in place. The Commonwealth Secretary General, we spoke to her literally on the eve of her arrival. And you heard what she had to say and how excited she was and the eloquent speech that she delivered. You saw the presence of the diplomatic community. So there's a lot of interest in Nigeria. We ought to know that. The tragedy seems to be that we don't seem to know how seriously people take us, and that we're getting in the way of other African countries. And clearly, people tell you where Nigeria goes, that's where Africa is going to go. So people are becoming increasingly impatient with us. And I think that what happened yesterday should be a lesson to all of us. And I think the fact that people left everything and came is a sign. And as you will see tomorrow, Nigerians will be heading in different directions and they'll make all the sacrifices. The challenge is for the political class to become much more serious about how it conducts itself. Because, and I need to clarify here, what happened yesterday didn't have to happen because what happened on the 11th of December, there was anything wrong with it. On the 11th of December, the contestants signed on to the fact that they will conduct their campaigns in a way and manner that doesn't incite violence. And I think in fairness to the political class, you can see a quantitative and a qualitative improvement in the decency, in the way people conducted themselves. The second signing of yesterday was to sign on to the fact that if this process is free, fair, and credible, we'll not have to put our people through all these other anxieties again. And I think Jonathan already led the way. So really, this is what they signed on to yesterday. The commitment to accepting the outcome of the elections. And I think it is very important that the key candidates understand, that their word ought to be their bond.
How binding is this peace accord?
No, just before we get into the bindingness, Juma, I would like Dr. Tanko to speak further to this. Bishop Kuka has already explained the difference between the first signing and the second signing. You were present at the two events, but what impression did you come away with yesterday, taking a look at the atmosphere?
You see, one good thing that you cannot take away from the Peace Committee is that every candidate find it very easy to explain and say his mind to the Peace Committee. Like you don't want to hide anything. You come out and explain some of the things that you feel is a big problem for you and you think the Peace Committee can find solution to it. I remember with nostalgia, when we met President Jonathan, there are things that he said. And when we met with General Muhammadu Buhari, as at that time, there are things that he said. But the Peace Committee was able to get these facts from them. And so when they go back to the meetings, they sit down, how do we tackle some of these issues? Now, yesterday, when you listen very carefully to the former vice president, he said, he frontally make a position that he's asking the president to use his good office to ensure there is a credible, free and fair elections. And when the president read out his speech too, he alluded to the fact that he is committed to a free and fair election. Ordinarily, some of these candidates will have kept anything that is disturbing them in their mind and then go out and carry out any kind of thing that they want to carry. But here, it was publicly said, and everybody now has to account for what he has committed himself in saying. And other political party presidential candidates under the auspices of the Interparty Advisory Council came out in their numbers to give support and agree that they will accord to this particular. That was a prior to even going onto the street shouting there's no violence and all. You could see the chairman of the IPAC saying that one Nigeria. So it's a key statement for me and for most of Nigerians who must have watched that event. It's trying to say that we are united going forward towards having a democratically elected president come Saturday, this February 16th.
I'm still on the atmospherics and what you came away with. I mean, if you looked at the galaxy of personalities that were in the auditorium yesterday, I mean, of course, somebody's going to wonder, look, how did you pull all of this together? 3 former African heads of state. If we were to include us, that would be 5 former African heads of state. Secretary General of the Commonwealth that is home to about 1/3 of the world's population. And several other dignitaries who were traditional rulers and so on and so forth. Listening to the comments and statements that each of them made in the goodwill messages, how did that resonate with you?
Sometimes, maybe when you marry a woman, she's at home, and then you usually look and see her every day, and it becomes monotonous to you. But the moment she packaged and she looks beautiful when she steps out, 1,000 of men have made comments on her how she looks beautiful. And that's the story.
Especially today on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
That is the story of Nigeria. Sometimes maybe when we look at ourselves, we feel probably we've seen too much of ourselves, we've known each other. But outside the country, people value us beyond measures. And so everybody that the Peace Committee invites, In fact, they find it as an honor. You hear them when they say it was an honor for them to be in Nigeria, to partake in the process. And for me, that is the quality of what Nigeria has been able to attract outside the country. People get worried when we have issues. And now they're trying to say that, look, I want to be part of that process that makes sure that Nigeria remains stable and there's a democratically elected president accepted by all, there's peace and no rancor. And so the quality of people coming in is as regard to the value in which they place on Nigeria. And I think we should start looking at that particular angle to really transform this country to a greater nation that a lot of people are yearning to come to.
Bishop Uka, let's back up a bit, because again, we've said this is the second appearance of the peace accord in 2 election cycles back to back. What did the peace accord and therefore the National Peace Committee achieve in 2015?
It's very difficult to say. You know, let me say very frankly that I was shocked by the way the outpouring of emotions and gratitude for what the Peace Committee did. I'm a bishop, so I just say, look, this is what God did with us. When we finished, you know, because we thought that we will just gather a few people. When Chivemeka Anyoko said to me, look, can you bring prominent Nigerians? We thought we'll just bring all this, we'll finish with the 2015 elections and everybody will go home. But when we finished, we went round, we decided, I said to General Abdul Salam, what are we going to do? Is everybody going to just go home now? We said, you know, our job is done. But I suggested, okay, maybe let's listen to people. So we called the media, we called civil society, we called the members of the board of trustees of the 2 political parties. We went to see the Senate president, we went to see the speaker, we went to see President Jonathan, we went to see the president himself, asking, you know what, and everybody, one and all. In fact, the most excited person was the president himself, who said, look, please give them an office. He said to the SGF, give them an office, let's start working. But we were a little bit restrained because we find, I mean, with my own little experience, when government gives you office, it's going to get problematic because people down the line, people will become. So we've tried to maintain our independence. And here I would like to thank the international community for what they've done, you know, in terms of supporting us and so on. So really, it's that I was really surprised. But I think that it is also suggestive of the fact that ordinary Nigerians need institutions that they can trust. And I hear it said all the time, and I hear when you read the reports of the World Bank, Afrobarometer, all these agencies that measure governance, they'll always tell you that citizens trust religious leaders rather than their politicians. I'm not happy to hear that. I'm happy that I'm being trusted, but in a political process, I prefer that the politicians themselves earn the trust of our people. So for me, the tragedy is that the political class still, and I've said it with no disrespect, politics is the only game that you don't need a certificate or need verifiable qualification to participate in. It is dangerous because it also means very clearly that Nigerians need to be more serious about the quality and caliber of people who are governing them. So all we are doing in the Peace Committee is just to negotiate and try to, you know, build more confidence in the process. But my hope and prayer is that sooner than later, the political class, and as you can see, and in fairness to civil society that has done tremendous work, and the media, you can see a lot of energy in the Nigerian political process. People are learning, people are curious, people are enthusiastic. And I'm amazed at the level of professionalism among ordinary people who are not necessarily politicians. These are the foot soldiers that will drive democracy. So I think that the more we hold the politicians to account, the more we become very professional in the way things are done. Sooner than later, in another 5, maybe 2 or 3 election cycles, a lot of these things that cause anxiety will probably calm down. But as I said, it's a burden on the political elite. Because when we finished in 2015, we thought that we had said goodbye to ethnicity, bigotry, and all this. But clearly, the things that the PDP is saying now are almost basically the same with the kind of things that the APC was saying in 2015. You know, and finally, on a final note, there's a lot of focus on institutions. And I think we also need to be clear. Last night, I got a telephone call from a young man, a friend of mine who is a captain. He's somewhere in Bama or maybe it's in the Northeast. He says to me, please, can you make a video call to me? Because my other soldiers want to greet you. And I made a video call. And there was this young military officers. I didn't know them. I was waving. Finally, I blessed them. But you could see the energy and the excitement. So I'm saying finally that I know people don't want to trust the institutions of state, whether they're military, whether they're policemen, but these policemen are also people who love and have an investment in our democracy. So everything that needs to be done has been done. In the final analysis, as we say, we live and for God. But I think clearly, let's become more trustful of the institution and the processes. Otherwise, I mean, you know, we cannot go into an election in which you don't trust everybody, you know, who is an agent in the process.
Okay, thank you so much, Bishop Kuka. Dr. Yunusa Tanko, I'm coming to you now. You have signed the peace accord yesterday, another one in December. How binding is it to you? How do you translate what you've signed to your followers in the rural areas, in the cities, when it comes to election? How do you translate what you've signed to your followers?
You know, I'm bounded by the fact that I came out in the air publicly to sign a document. So now I'm going to account for that signature of mine and any other candidate. So when other person see me or speak anything that's contrary to that signing, then I become a persona non grata. That's the issue, because it will now behove on me. People will not trust me anymore because already I've betrayed the trust on which and that brings us to this simple fact. The institution that our Lord Bishop was just mentioning is a fact that majority of Nigerians want to trust the institution again. I was just reading this morning, with all due respect, the Attorney General was talking about postponement of the election in Zamfara State. You see, these are some of the things that really make people to lose trust in terms of the electioneering process. We have a timetable and we have an agenda already stipulated by INEC, which has the sole right to conduct election. If there are any other things that they have, let the court decide, but not to say probably the institution that's supposed to govern to show kind of clarity and all are now being used to undermine the process. In such a way, those are the kind of things that may inspire. Already the people in Zamfara are agitated already. Now, when you bring up such a matter, then the peace committee has another new work to do in Zamfara State. And these are things that happen, pocket of things that happens around the country. So you have a moral right to ensure that by the time you meet eminent Nigerians who have spent all of their lives trying to make sure that we have an egalitarian society, and you look them in the face, and you sign a document that you will not be part of instilling any form of violence, and then you go back and do contrary to that opinion, I think the Nigerian people have the right to decide that they should not vote you in any way. So, and these are the danger, that we must be accountable to what we do, what we say, our action, and even our body language must be able to depict exactly what we want for this country. And after all, if you don't have a peaceful society, there's no person you can govern.
Well, fine. Still with you, Dr. Tanko. I know you're talking about body language, signaling, and therefore the importance of acceding to the peace accord. But the question will also arise, how do you cascade the essence of all of this down to the foot soldiers of the politicians? There is a few roughnecks still out there.
That's right. But you see, when they say, there's this particular saying that when the fish is bad, it starts from the head. Right. And then when the head is cool and calm, and he has already shown that he's not interested in violence in any way, probably there's no way. Because, look, the truth about it is that all of these particular heads that you are talking about, they need somebody to give them something to do with. If there's nobody giving them any money or even making that particular statement in a way that depict that you want violence, they won't even come. They will only be coming to action, and then you'll be telling them. So it's a challenge on the leaders. And the challenge comes from how you mobilize from the world level to the local government level and then to the states. How you talk to your people, what you say. And when you speak in a manner that they understand that this guy is not interested in problems and all, they will not even come near you. But once you kind of make any kind of statement, there are statements that sometimes when you hear some of our leaders make, you want to question their integrity in the first place. Probably they are not guided by what they say, but when they make that statement, it trickles down. And probably because of the love that those roughhead has for that particular candidate, they go off the rope, and then before you knew it, it will have casualty on the street. And I think as we usually say, former President General say, no election is worth the blood of every Nigerian, and I think that should be captured every now and then.
But Kingsley, on the issue of cascading, you know, the Peace Committee, this is the problem. From my little experience, Oputa Panel, Electoral Reform Committee, you notice that whenever government sets up anything, all the attentions of Nigerians, they just assume this is a lamb that has been, it will take away our sins and we can all go and sleep. The problem is that, look, there's nothing, the Peace Committee is like a grandmother. You know, the hard work of politics has to be done. If we've not replaced the police, we've not replaced the security agencies, we've not replaced INEC. All we are trying to do, we're just encouraging institutional. So I think what we are doing, and I think reflecting now, we now have to go back. One of the things we're planning to do in the Peace Committee now is to begin a range of activities between now and the next election. Happily, we have a little bit of funding that can enable us to do that. So what we intend to do is perhaps to begin a range of regional engagements. We just had one in the Northeast not long ago. It was very, very well received. And that, you know, it is easy to talk about preaching, about, you know, telling people to be peaceful. Again, I go back to the political class. You know, I hear politicians say, oh, you know, a country cannot develop without peace. But the politicians are failing to understand that it is their irresponsibility that is generating the conflict. So it's not either or. You cannot ask your people to be peaceful. It's like expecting your children to be quiet when there is, you know, when they are hungry. So again, I still make the point that I really wish that Nigerian politicians will reward our people with some of the very basic things. And I travel around. I come from a very small community. I know that our people are not asking for much. But I can tell you that in the last God knows how many years, I don't know when anybody, any government sank a hole to say this is evidence of our presence. 4 years have gone now. 8 years have gone now. Many communities have not felt one single impact of government. And guess what? If you go to Wikipedia now, all the things government used to hide about how much is a security vote, you can go on the internet now and find out what Kaduna, Rivers, Cross River, every state, everybody, you can find out what everybody is collecting. So there is a very serious distrust of the political process. Peace Committee cannot resolve that. If you look at the Afrobarometer report, Afrobarometer is just in Ghana. And how they identify the various institutions of corruption and how people perceive. They actually include the churches, they include traditional rulers, they include even president and his people in his office. And the percentages are staggering. So my point is that our people are increasingly becoming frustrated because democracy in Africa is not delivering. This is why you find violence going pari passu with ordinarily, this is why Europe has rolled back on violence. Because democracy has institutionalized a system and a culture that people feel safe in their homes, education, and all the basic things in life. So for me, we can do all the work we have to do as a priest, as a member of the Peace Committee, and beyond a particular point, I feel guilty if I'm asking people to be peaceful. And the people who are supposed to deliver the very basic things of life are living a reckless life that doesn't address their problems. Because that's what politics was meant to be.
This is a very significant point that Bishop Kuka has raised, Dr. Tanko, and it has to do with the ends of democracy.
Yes.
It's democracy giving us the desired ends, and therefore we having to come back to the drawing board each time to say, look, how do you sort out the peace challenges? What is it that the political class needs to do? I'm asking this question against the background of an assumption, as you said, that, look, the fish begins to rot from the head, and therefore there's a challenge. So if the presidential candidates have signed onto the peace deal, there's an expectation that down the ladder, this will also percolate. But in terms of delivering the so-called dividends of democracy, not just by mouthing it, what does this mean? Because peace, as he says, or conflict rather, is often, a result of the absence of the ends of democracy.
while I, as a scholar, I try to do some kind of a research and trying to look at what is it that is stopping our people from actually delivering on their promises. And then I come to realize that the fact is that many of our leaders are so comfortable in their own comfort zone, thinking that maybe if it's not political party A or political party B are comfortable, they are comfortable in that particular nature. Now, and I'm trying to find a solution. Look, why can't you do something different? That's why I'm a full supporter of multi-party democratic system. Unfortunately, one of the things that we are thinking that could be done was to create a more competitive environment within the political class. And now that we have about 91 political parties, our assumption was that it could have been better if we have started the sequence of election from the state assembly. Now, if we start from the state assembly, majority of the political party, different political party, it will have been more interesting. You see many of the other political parties winning election. And if they win election, what they will do may be different from the ones that you know of. And then probably the dividend of democracy will trickle down to those particular areas that people have not felt it at all because they are trying to make an impression. I'll give you a simple example. When you look at the advent of this GSM and all, I bought my line to 22,000 naira on MTN was only. There was total control. Now, by the time it was broken down, we have Glow, we have Airtel and all. At the point in time, it was actually almost been given for free. So there's a competition now that has given it the quality and people are trying to improve. Now, in that regard,
let me interject. Let me ask this question with the greatest respect to the political class. Is the political class irresponsible not to recognize the workaday challenges that Nigerians face and therefore how to address them?
They are not. There's this particular situation. Sometimes when you are going into when we visited the National Assembly under the Peace Committee, you remember, sir, there was a member who said he has to sell his house and his property because immediately when he's going for campaign, the next people will say, where is Yemiego, Kaokudi, Kayan Aiki? You know, these are words. And then if he wants to win election, because he has to win election, he has to give money. And so at that point in time, there's a two-way traffic. The electorate feel that, okay, when this guy gets to this power, he will not do anything. Let me collect my own. And the politician, feel that, okay, I have already given them their own share, so I take care of my own share. So that becomes the two-way traffic. But what we are saying that if there's another force now that comes in to show something different, look, I have spent 24 years of my life in politics. Look at Chief Gani Fayemi. Look at all of our credible leaders that have already shown interest in governance. What did they get out of it? Because they didn't give that kind of money to canvass for vote. I'm running as president. I don't have money to pay for agents. If I have a quarter of what they are having, probably I would have done more than what I could have been able to do. And probably the level of deliverance will have been different. So what I'm saying in essence is that there are Nigerians who are capable, who have more will and determined to give the dividend of democracy to our people. Do the right thing at the right time. In fact, you cannot, at this night against tomorrow, there's no way. You must cough out a huge sum of money to pay your agent. The minimum you can pay agent is 5,000 naira. The minimum, we have 120,000 polling stations. Where do you get the money? And then they are not going to do this thing for you free. Probably as the way we get in developed countries like volunteers and all. They won't do it because they don't trust that particular system. Yeah, that is the problem about it. So we need to build this culture of trust and then probably service to the people. So the difference of democracy, when I don't collect money from you and you don't give me anything, I have a moral right to challenge you. But today, most of the politicians, you can hardly challenge them. You tell you frontally. After all, you came here yesterday, I gave you a bag of rice, I gave you Maggi, I gave you what are you asking me again? You understand? But once you stop that, you account for your service and all, and then we don't see the people in government using government treasury to run for election, because that's what's happening at the moment now. They use the treasury that belongs to everybody to run for election, thereby denying others who have credibility or probably have something better to give the society. Look, I keep on giving these analogies. I say, even in a bend-down market, when you go to buy second-hand goods, it's the person that gets money that takes the best one out of it. Yes. This is the situation. It's sad.
That is bent down boutique.
Yes, it's sad, but we need to change that particular narrative.
Okay, all right. Dr. Tanko, thank you very much. We're taking a short break now if the engineers are ready. Otherwise, my question goes to Bishop. Of course, he's a doctor, by the way, has a PhD in political science from SOAS. Bishop Matthew Kuka. What the National Peace Accord, again, sometimes we have a challenge in the country. Everybody focuses on the center and says, look, it has to be at the federal level, it has to be at the federal level. There have been a few reports of what the National Peace Committee has tried to do in terms of seeking to domesticate peace accords in some otherwise volatile locations. How successful has this been?
Well, one of the interesting things with Nigeria is that if you start selling oranges here today, you come back tomorrow, there will be 20 people selling oranges. And the culture of peace committees, signing of peace accord, it's good for the system. The challenge is that we must not see this as an episode that simply happens in front of the cameras. It is to develop that culture of interrogation. And this is why the point you raise, you see, our politicians, too many people are in the process with severely limited and constrained understanding of what politics is. And look, why will Mahathir come back to Malaysia at 90-something years old? Because people can see a vision. The challenge we have in Nigeria is that there are too many people on the steering wheel with no idea of which direction we are going to. This is why you're finding the average politician is telling you, people are telling you about the kilometers of road that we have tarred, all the plans that we have, the railways, they're all wonderful. But we don't need democracy to build railways. We don't need democracy to build roads. If democracy were about infrastructure, Hitler will be a saint because of the quality of infrastructure he left in Germany. If infrastructure were the issue, apartheid should still be on the ground in South Africa. We wouldn't have fought it. Today, the best roads in South Africa, they will last up to the next century, were tarred under apartheid. So our people, is because of the severe limitations of their understanding that some of the great things about democracy are intangible. It's about freedom. And freedom is not something you can measure. It's a feeling. And it's about creating an opportunity where whatever I want, you see, when the Americans say I can be whatever I want to be, it's an elastic feeling. It doesn't mean you win the World Cup. No, there won't be another Obama very soon, but the feeling that this is possible. So here we are, because our politicians are inheriting so much money. The level of imagination is closed, and all that people tell you, a minister said to us, once you get into government, all the bureaucrats do is they tell you where to do the stealing. You go to the ministry, they will tell you, we already have 500 million here to be, it was saved from last year. Well, so for me, I don't know how to make this point, but it is that we have a bunch of people who are in politics who have really no business being, in the process. So, and I end here. The consolation is, if you listen to the interview and you listen to the vice president, you listen to the vice presidential candidate of PDP and the vice president, you could hear an elevation of a certain kind of intellect, privileging intellect as a basis for politics and political discussion. So my take is that we probably need another 10 years. These carpetbaggers are going to go, but sooner than later, you will not be able to rule Nigeria if you cannot answer certain questions. So, and I think the politics of hostage taking, which is what we have now, that if you can go back the last 20 years or even more, Nigerians have never had anything to do with whoever is president today. We just wake up and somebody has been wheeled to us and said, this is the one we are going to, vote for. We've never had a situation in which maybe somebody that we never heard about, through his imagination, through his creativity, has suddenly launched himself. And this is why the not too young to run bill is also significant, because you can see the injection of energy, drive, verve, commitment. The sad thing is that every Nigerian politician thinks that politics is about contesting for office. It is not about that. So I think that we should just be patient. But sooner than later, I think the process is going to get to a level in which ideas become more important.
All right, Bishop Kuka, thank you very much. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll take your tweets, then continue with the conversation.
The UN compound houses about 400 employees.
The building is not safe.
The Nigerian capital Abuja is still reeling from Monday morning's rush hour bomb.
If the group did carry out the attack, it would be one of its worst.
2 suicide bombings in Nigeria. One targeted a convoy carrying Nigeria's main opposition leader.
Gun attack on the central mosque in North Nigeria's biggest city, Kano.
21 people have died in a large explosion at the Banex Plaza shopping center in the capital, Abuja.
Islamist extremists brought Christmas carnage to churches across Nigeria.
Team huddle. But we lost. Don't be tired, guys. This isn't a loss. It's a practice for winning.
Nothing makes a mother prouder than seeing her child growing up. But I know as he learns to lead, he'll face even more dirt, germs, and risk of illness.
That's why in changing seasons, you need strong Dettol protection. Because Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Over 1 trillion naira housing investment in just 3 years. Federal Ministry of Power Works and Housing is sinking over 100 billion naira. Family Home Fund is investing over 500 billion naira. Federal Mortgage Bank Limited has invested billions of naira on housing finance. Federal Housing Authority is also spending billions of naira to house Nigerians. With a population of over 180 million Nigerians, housing development never got the desired attention until this time of President Muhammadu Buhari. While shanties and dilapidated buildings characterized Nigerian landscape in the past, the Buhari's government now is sinking billions of naira for inclusive housing for all Nigerians. For 16 years, the Federal Housing Authority had no single finance from the federal government, but within 3 years of President Buhari, the Federal Housing Authority is back on site, building houses for Nigerians. Supporting Mr. President is a support for more houses to Nigerians. Let's ensure continuity. Let's vote for the man who is doing it.
Reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We have some tweets already. Then we have another guest, of course, who will be joining us. That will be after we sign off Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka, convener of the National Peace Committee. Just before we let you go, Bishop Kuka, after the signing of the peace accord, the elections are just 2 days away, and after that, 2 weeks later, we also have the state and governorship elections. Are you hopeful?
I market hope because I'm a priest. I will not be here if I'm not hopeful. Look, this is a very energetic country. 99% of Nigerians are committed to. They just want somebody to inspire them a little bit more. And I think, look, as I said, this is a heck of a country. So there is no backing down at all. And I think where we are now, we must continue, I believe, by the grace of God. And I pray that the political class at all levels will trim down their ambitions. Otherwise, there's no reason why we should not have free, fair, and credible elections and hopefully swear in a president on May 29th.
All right. We'd like to thank you, Dr. Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka, Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. Thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take some tweets now from our viewers. Festus Akimboyewa has this tweet. It says, it's good that the presidential candidates signed another peace accord a few days to the election. Now that they have signed, they and their followers must walk the talk. Time to grow out of the scourge of political violence which has bedeviled our country since independence.
And Kyo and My Nation says, we say kudos to General Abubakar, man of peace, for organizing the peace accord.
And this is coming from DW Nigeria Limited. DW Nigeria Limited is saying the peace accord signed at various levels. So the politicians have to do enough to ensure that their words and actions do curb cases of violence and deaths in some of the places before the elections. How are they going to do this? During and after the elections? And then also he adds that what the various political parties should have done as part of the accord is to individually or collectively as a party make public declarations to that effect, urging their followers not to be violent no matter the outcomes.
Annie Michael Omokwaji says the signing of peace accords should make those causing mayhem or planning for pre- and post-electoral violence to have a second thought. No life worth losing for election's sake. Position of authority is designed by God and he gives to whoever he wants. So vote without violence.
And this is coming from Comrade Ungala, that's Mustafa Ungala. It says, signing a peace accord is a good development. Let's remain united because election is not a do or die affair. So those are the tweets that we have in the meantime. Jumaya, we have another guest who's joined us now.
Yes. Our guest is the Executive Director, Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, and Head Civil Society Election Situation Room, Dr. Clement Nwoko. Thank you so much for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Jumai. No doctor.
Clem Nwanko, let's see, you have a question. Let me just, let's, of course, we just signed off Bishop Kuka, and Dr. Tanko is still here with us in the studios. You were also at the second signing of the National Peace Accord. What were your takeaways?
First, the turnout, the fact that all the candidates were there. I think that was significant. It showed the disposition of the candidates to have peaceful elections. And I think that that's really the most important thing in these candidates setting aside their campaign schedule and coming together to make that affirmation of the need for peace in the country. I think virtually everybody who spoke in that hall spoke with a sense of concern about Nigeria and the important need for Nigeria to get past this period. So I thought that there was an atmosphere of congeniality around the room, and that was really very positive.
Okay, Dr. Clement Nwanko, 20 years of democracy. It is still growing in this country, and more politicians are coming on board. Dr. Bishop Kuka spoke about the Not Too Young to Run bill. By maybe in the next 10 years, we'll be seeing a more vibrant democracy. Do you think that is going to happen soon?
I think that this country had been or has been in the grip of a certain age of people. What we are seeing is young people asking questions about leadership, asking questions about what their role is. They grew up, they've seen the same names they grew up with from when they began to even hear, are the same names they are continuing to hear today. So I think a lot of people who are affected by a sense of Nigeria not living up to its promise are beginning to ask questions. And because it's a phenomenon around the world as well, we've seen very young people assume positions of leadership. It's not strange in Nigeria, because when you go back to the beginning, the independence era, those who were in leadership were in their 20s and 30s. Unfortunately, that phase never quite went away. And of course, when the military took over, it was still it was young people, but they have continued to play a dominant role. The whole cadre of military leadership have continued to play, and this is including the ex-generals now, have continued to play a role. And young people are asking the question, if we have come this far and the situation in the country has not delivered on the promise and expectations that we have, then it's about time that we take over. And I really think it's a very important thing that young people are asking those questions. I think it's important that in asking those questions, they take the extra mile of going out there, looking for who they are supporting, looking for how to get involved themselves and make those choices themselves.
Well, Mr. Nwanko, the presidential candidates acceded to the National Peace Accord yesterday. In your opinion, what are the other critical success factors for the peace accord in letter and in spirit?
I think the fact that they have said so, they have to deliver on their own promises because they signed an accord, they made undertakings to respect the electoral process, to ensure that they do not engineer their supporters into violence. That needs to happen. The stakeholders in the electoral process also need to deliver on their expectations. And that's the point that was also made yesterday, that all of the stakeholders, whether it is the Electoral Commission or the security services who are involved with the elections, or even observers who are involved in the elections, everybody understands the important need that whatever your personal preferences are, you should not manifest that in the way the elections are conducted. And I think if we can do that, if we can get candidates commit to peace and actually preach peace and practice peace, if stakeholders involved in the electoral process, whether it's election officials or security agencies, go out there altruistically to deliver and understand that the election is about the Nigerian people, and it's only the Nigerian people that can make those decisions. Nobody should want to make those decisions for the Nigerian people. If we all understand that, then I think we should then cast our votes, participate in the process, and expect that the results will be a true reflection of the will of the people.
Is it a high hurdle for the institutions of state that are concerned with the electoral process, such as you have itemized, the election management body, the security agencies in particular, and all those, to recognize that, appreciate the fact, and also act it out that what they are performing, the roles they are performing, are duties they owe to the Nigerian people and the Nigerian state, and therefore be selfless, and therefore be impartial? Can we psychologically scale that hurdle?
Well, I think it's something that we need to go beyond psychologically taking it up. I think it's something that we need to manifest. In the army, there's a saying that goes that says that soldier goes, soldier come, barrack remains. So we are actors in a scene or on the stage, and as soon as we play our roles, which should be the right roles, we pull back. We understand that the barracks, which is the country, remains. So I think that everybody who is playing a role needs to go in, and the leadership of these institutions need to infuse into the actors the important fact that the most important thing is the country. It doesn't matter who the president is or who the governor is. If the institutions are working, then you would see people held accountable. You would see people, you would see the country begin to function. The whole idea that the president, the governor is the ultimate, and whatever they say or however they breathe affects the way a country is run, is a dangerous proposition. And we've seen in democracies that have advanced that it doesn't matter who it is that is at the helm of affairs. The institutions are running, the civil service is running, the security services are running, the army is running, the electoral commission is running. It doesn't matter who the individuals are. In some cases where those individuals holding positions misbehave, if the system functions well, there is systems or procedures to remove the particular individual who is a clog in the wheel. So the most important thing is not the individual who holds the position. It's the institutions, the state, and they must be insulated and isolated from partisanship and politics.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Eunice Atanko, now there's been a lot of talk about the role of security agencies in the election process. We also have seen over various election cycles the advent of rogue elements. You know, those who procure uniforms of either of the armed forces or the police or the paramilitary entities and don them. They commit all kinds of atrocities, and these are oftentimes or sometimes attributed to the bona fide organizations. So maybe you have policemen who are in fake uniform, you know, they perform whatever disruption they want to perform. How might this be tackled? You know, because there are politicians who are said to procure them in the first instance. How might this be tackled so that the good work of the regular and bona fide security agencies doesn't get besmeared by the activities of these rogue elements.
Due diligence into duties and ensuring that you take inventory of what kind of security agents that was being posted to any polling station. Now, when you get to a polling station and you expect to see the police, you see the civil defense, you expect to see any agent that has that right to be at that polling station. Now, there must be a command center, and the person who is commanding must be able to ascertain who is actually being posted, and the identity of that particular person must be established. But once you don't do that, then you're not paying due diligence to your duty, then that gives room for this purification of people who are not supposed to be at the polling station. And it's a simple matter, really. And you must ensure that you don't, you encourage the security agents, meaning that you must make sure that they are being paid their own allowance accordingly. Because denial of paying them their money and all of those will make them be accessible to politicians who want to induce or use any kind of, because before you can see that kind of gap happening, there must be a kind of a conspiracy theory, even from the leadership, from the top, that will say, okay, just ignore as if the person is not there. And this is where we really have to make this particular point very clear. Our security agency must realize that it is not the person in power that you are serving. You are serving the nation. Because the person in power at that time will come and go. And then the house will still remain. So you need to protect that particular sovereignty of the country as number one. So don't look at it that this is the person that appointed me, and so I must respond to that particular person. Sometimes even the politicians, some of my colleagues, will get an attaché of police officers, or even some of them have army attached to them, and they will come to the police station with their agbada and babariga and all be posing, and then you give way. The security man will then give way, impugning on the integrity and then the right of even the voters who are supposed to be in that particular place. So the moment the person comes there, you see the level of intimidation that comes in. Or you come with a pool of siren, and then the officer of the police will just be, yes, sir, just open the door for him and all. These are intimidations. You understand? So we must be able to clearly define the roles of the agents, and then they should know that when they are trying to keep peace and do their duties, they're not doing it as a kind of an eye service to the person in power, but rather to the country, and then protecting the citizens who are, because most of the times we talk about only the politicians and the big men in the society. We don't talk about the electorate and how we protect them. Because we put them into the sun and all of those, that they'll come rain and all, and then they are not being cared for or being protected in such a way. And at the end of it all, it is their own vote that actually propel you to go to that particular office. So we must be able to do due diligence to the people who are coming to that office, ensure that there's an inventory taken to identify those agents who are supposed to be, and anybody that wants to come in through the back door will be afraid, because you know there's a kind of a process he has to follow.
Okay, Dr. Satanko, let's talk about vote buying. It has been on the, everybody has been talking about it, vote buying, and INEC is really worried about vote buying.
Yes.
How do you see this thing, turning around? How do you think people will be educated just some hours to the presidential election? Do you think vote buying will not take place?
Well, Nigerians are very, very dynamic, and they have this creativity's idea of how to manipulate system if they want to. Before, we don't hear of vote buying. It was never even an issue. Then all of a sudden, it now sprung up that even when you have to snap a picture of what you vote, and somebody is there to give you, pay you your money. Now, INEC is saying that you don't go into the polling station with your phones. And I'm sure there must have been creating, in fact, recently there has been counter and accusation that people are collecting phone numbers and VIN numbers of voters, and then money will be transferred directly into the account of such individuals. So at that polling station, you may not see this direct snapping and all of those ones. But what we really need to do is have to do with attitudinal change. Unfortunately, but as we are moving, there's this sense of belief. Nigerians are asking fundamental questions, serious questions. Some of them have now come to that particular irrevocable conclusion that, look, it's not about money anymore. It's about actually who has the capacity to lead this country. And then if that should be the narrative that is being sold into the electorate, it will make a lot of change. What we need now is a kind of a large advocacy to kind of educate the electorate as regard to the danger of vote buying. What it does to you, even if you are saying that I'm collecting my own now, you are collecting your suffering for the next 4 years. And people should know this. So it's not about giving you money and collecting and then you spend it within a short period. In fact, within 1 second, man, it's spent. And then on the part of our politician, it's very, very important. And it's very stomach worrying that when our politicians come to Nigeria, they see what happens outside the country. They kind of enjoy it. They kind of value it. I give a simple example. You have Nigerians in the UK, in America. Some of them are in the House of Commons and they contested election, going to those countries, staying there as citizens. They contest election. It will be difficult for any Nigerian, probably from a southern extraction, grow up in Adamawa, live all his life in Adamawa, and wants to contest election according to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, then they will tell you that, look out for him. Is he from Adamawa? What village is he from? But meanwhile, he has a constitutional right. So we enjoy this good thing outside the country, but we find it difficult to practice same in our own country.
Yeah, Dr. Thank you. But things weren't always like this. I mean, we had examples in the First Republic and even before independence of persons, from different parts of the country who were domiciled.
Enugu, we have Atene in Kano, we have, yes, there is.
And then, of course, in Edo and then several other parts of the country.
Yes.
But just before we wrap this up, back to Clement Nwankwo, the National Peace Accord. Well, this has come now. It's a huge bump, some persons have said, on the polity. But they say eternal vigilance is very important, considering some of the underlying tensions around the polity. What extra care, if you like, should be taken? Voting is just 2 days away, and thereafter, we await the results, all else being equal.
Extra care is continuing to care about the issues that we raise, issues of addressing some of the challenges, keeping an eye on the electoral process, on the electoral commission, on all of the stakeholders. It was quite important listening to the news yesterday and hearing that the army has set up a situation room, which I think is very commendable. And I'm happy that they mentioned the fact that it's a collaboration or there would be a lot of interaction with civil society groups. We are waiting and hoping that we can understand how that process works and ensure that we get to see how that is. With the police, the Inspector General of Police have been saying the right things as the new Inspector General of Police. Very delightful things hearing him saying these things. I think the collaboration, the connections, the conversations with these stakeholders will really be very important. Once all of these agencies understand their role as defined in the Electoral Act, then I think that helps. And we in civil society who are observing the process will be able to see to what extent they respect the rules defined for them in the Electoral Act and how they are able to intervene to help to ensure that the process works smoothly. For us in civil society, for the international observers who are here, it is a worldwide phenomenon now, observation of elections, to be able to see that we observe and be able to report as impartial and non-partisan a manner what we see, and hoping that the politicians continue to respect or even begin to respect the accord that they signed regarding a peaceful elections. If all of this happens, then I think Saturday might just come and we'll wonder why we were all so anxious and apprehensive.
I was going to ask that question. I mean, just 2 days away, and maybe the temperature will be coming down by tomorrow. But so you get in there and then so cast your votes and then go home. It's on that note we'd like to thank our two guests, Dr. Yunusa Tanko, a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. He's the NCP presidential candidate and one-time chair of IPAC, that's Interparty Advisory Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Best of luck on Saturday.
Thank you.
Okay, we also would like to thank Clement Nwankwo. Of course, Clement Nwankwo is a very well-known face in civil society. He's chairman of the Civil Society Election Situation Room and also executive director of Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, BLAC. Clem, thanks for being with us on the program.
Thanks, Kinsley. Thanks, Joy.
Okay. All right, let's go on now to our sports desk.
Mali defeated